Welcome back, and you are listening to local candidate interviews brought to you live by Sandhills Broadcasting, WFJA, and WWGP. Brought to you also by The Rant, and with video on Facebook Live, provided by Brick Capital Video. We're here in the studio of WFJA. I'm Billy Liggett, and I'm returning as your host for today's interviews. Before we start with our second interview, I remind you that you can listen to our interviews today on WFJA 105.5 FM, WWGP 1050 AM, and on 95.1 FM. And these interviews are also video streaming live on the WFJA Facebook page, and as well as on Facebook page for The Rant. Today we are talking with the three Democratic candidates running for Lee County Board of Commissioners. Our three candidates today are Amy Dalrymple, who we just spoke to, Mark Lovick, who is our guest in studio at this moment, and with Cameron Sharp, who will be following Mr. Lovick. I know I probably just said this, but I'm being reminded that you are listening live to candidate interviews on 105.5 FM WFJA and on WWGP 1050 AM and 95.1 FM. Mr. Lovick, welcome to the studio here today. Thank you for joining us. I appreciate you taking the time to do this. We just interviewed one of your fellow Democratic Board of Commissioner candidates, Amy Dalrymple, and the one thing I learned from that interview is I need to go a little bit quicker. So,
all right, we'll go fast.
All right. We'll go fast. Before we get to the heavy stuff, let's find out a little bit more about you. Of the three Democratic candidates, you are the lone challenger in this race. Tell us about yourself and why you chose to run for Board of Commissioner.
Well, first of all, I always start every one of my interviews, every one of my talks with who I truly am. And I serve the Lord Jesus Christ first, always. I answer to Him. I'm very passionate about that, as you can tell. So, but with that, I'm Mark Lovick, and I am born and raised here in Sanford. I grew up in Cheesetown, North Carolina, which is Jonesboro, and went to school here all my life. As soon as I became 18 years old, I joined the volunteer fire service. I'm married. Between my wife and myself, this is my second marriage. We have 5 boys, so we're keeping Lee County growing. I was a firefighter here in Sanford for 17 years. I came to the rank of captain. I've been a part-time deputy, believe it, since 1988, 32 years. I'm a small business owner, and I'm running because my heart's desire is to run. Nobody came to me and asked me to run. I'm here because during those times of putting out fires, car wrecks, domestic disputes, nobody asked who I was, Democrat, Republican, and I think that's so important. Today's time, we need to run and do things, the right thing for who people are and not what party we are. So I'm running as a Democrat, but for the people. I don't need to know who you are, and I will do the right thing no matter what. So that's a little bit about who I am.
Well, we're going to get into the important stuff, but real quick, you called Jonesboro Cheesetown. Why is that?
Jimmy Hare actually gave me the scoop on this. He said somehow, like you bait a mousetrap with cheese. Back in the day when Sanford and Jonesboro were two different towns, the boys kind of baited the girls, and they in turn they call it Cheesetown because they kind of baited the girls to come to Jonesboro area.
I had never heard that before.
Yeah, I never had either. But
okay.
Jimmy Hare, the wealth of knowledge he is, though, gave me that information. So.
You learn anything from the? No,
yes,
I'm kidding. So back when you filed to run for office, it looks a lot different today than it did, roughly 7-8 months ago, and you would be running, and if you were elected, you would be joining a board of commissioners at a time where we've been in a pandemic for the last 7 or 8 months. We're starting to crawl toward normalcy a little bit, yet numbers might dictate otherwise. The future is very uncertain. What do you see the role of a board of a commissioner is during this time, and how does a commissioner help a county get through this?
Well, for the last since February of 2018, I had filed previously, and I've attended every Board of Commissioners meeting, even virtual, since that time, besides less than a handful. And I've learned a lot by being there at meetings, learning, and I found out really that we have done a pretty good job here in Lee County, better than a pretty good job. Our county manager, John, has stepped up, got county employees where they could work at home more. Our emergency operations, Shane Seagroves has done a really good job with those guys. They're setting up for testing. They're setting up. Our school nurses have been involved of answering questions and taking temperatures for county employees. So we've really done a good job. And with my emergency services background as a firefighter and a deputy, our number one priority is always safety. If we're going to err, we need to err on the side of safety no matter what, through every situation. And with that, like I say, our county has done a great job on this. Only 15 deaths. I say only 15, but there could have been so many more if our county hadn't have stepped up and did the right things, had personal protective equipment in place in certain situations. So I really think we've done a good job, and I don't want to lose another one. If we can come up with ways and look into certain ways to find 15's too many, but 15's not terrible with the situation we're in. So I think overall our county's done a good job, and I would like my emergency services background to help in that, to look into the future, because we never know what we're going to come up against maybe later.
Yeah. You say you've attended all these meetings, and you've even attended the virtual ones. You say the county has done a lot of good things during this time. What are some of the things you've seen the county maybe could improve on that you think, if elected, you could certainly help steer them in the right direction?
Like I say, my emergency services background, I'm going to always tell you safety. Safety is my number one before school, before economic development. What good is a town that we can look back at our, Chicago's and Detroit's and all those great cities, and their safety is compromised now, and they have really went down. So I'm going to always err on the side of safety. With those, though, we have done, a lot of good things that we need to look at for, in the future. That I'm just really excited to work with our Board of Commissioners. I'm really excited to work for Town of Broadway, the City of Sanford. This is a community effort, our Board of Education. So, getting involved with those, anytime, that's one reason I'm running. I am a hands-on guy. You will not see me just at election time. You will see me working for this county, and I promise to be there, and my other promise is I'll do my very best. And so that's what I'm looking forward to, is jumping on board and both feet going with the county commissioners.
So when you talk first responders and you talk safety, certainly you include law enforcement in that scenario. And I know law enforcement nationally has taken a hit, whether deserved or not. We're not here to debate that with this question, but do you feel like our sheriff's office has handled these these times of civil unrest and everything going on in the nation? Do you feel like our own sheriff's office, which is under the Board of Commissioners, has responded well? And do you feel like anything in that part of what the county is responsible for can change, to provide more trust, I guess, for law enforcement and for first responders like that?
Right. First of all, I'm proud. Like I say, I've served up under Sheriff Bryan and Sheriff Carter. Been there 32 years now as a part-time deputy. I think really Tracy has been a great hands-on guy. He's handled things well. Every decision we make in life is a personal decision. You can teach and teach and teach. I think law enforcement, which I'm not saying we probably don't need a little more background on how to handle things, when it comes to people, but it's a personal decision a lot of time. But Sheriff Carter has done a great job on that. I would like to see a little more training on that. I know personally from the 32 years of experience, you can't make a person, but I'm so proud of our local sheriff's office and police department. I've worked around those guys through law enforcement and fire service, and I don't feel any of those guys or I think, a lot of them are taking a bad hit on this stuff. They are bad apples. I'm not saying there's not.
Sure.
But I'll tell you, all the guys I work around are great deputies, great officers, and I have nothing but admiration for them through this whole deal.
Okay. Do you feel like, here, I know I have a ton of questions here, and, we only have such a limited time. So I'm going to skip that one, and we're going to go to some of the hot button issues, I guess, that are going on with this election. And, I've been in Sanford for 13 years. I started at the newspaper, and that's where I learned what a tax incentive was. And I also learned that a tax incentive is a very hotly debated issue. You could argue that they've worked in Lee County, or you can also point to times where it hasn't worked in Lee County. Where do you fall on the use of tax incentives, and do you support them, or are you mostly against them?
I do support them. unfortunately, you have to support them to get businesses here. I'll use one of John Hockaday's analogies. If you go out on a golf course and you're playing around the golf, and I only use a putter and you get to use your full set of clubs, then who's going to be at disadvantage? And unfortunately, Lee County did not come up with tax incentives. You do have to use them to get those businesses here. And I think recently it has shown how great tax incentives, $800 million fixing to come into our county, a tax incentive that came in earlier for Pfizer, and now they're building a $500 million project out there that, so it's kind of like your stocks. You have to put in things that you think is going to do good, and when it does good, I think it's done good, and it's kind of like our kids. We don't give them a pay them our money or allowance until they do a job. It's the same way on tax incentives.
Wish you would tell my kids that.
Well, on a tax incentives, it's not corporate welfare. It is, they say they will do this for a certain number of years. We'll give them a tax break, and they don't get that tax break until the very end when they're audited and checked out, and they've done what they said they were going to do. It's not an upfront money giving away situation, and I'm so... and I've been at the meetings, and it's going 4-3, and that's
Sure.
not right. That we've got to come on board and look at these things and do the right things for Lee County.
Well, I'm going to aim this question directly at you because of your experience then. When you bring in more high-paying jobs, which means you also bring in a lot more people, a lot more communities, which also puts a strain on school districts and first responders and law enforcement. Is the county prepared for what's going to come with all these new residents and new jobs?
I think we're better prepared in a lot of situations. I know our city has come on, and we have great city and water and sewer. We have prepared a lot of situations. Our volunteer fire departments, a lot of these new areas that's going to be annexed is going to be actually in the city limits, and so that will be the care of the city of Sanford. But with that, our volunteer fire departments here in Sanford are going to take up the slack until they're able to build new stations in those areas. So I think we are prepared. I think we're going to be prepared. I think I'm the type guy, I don't believe in building for today. I believe in building for tomorrow. I think with the school boards, they're going to have to look at schools bigger, and I want to get all our kids in brick and mortar. I don't like the mobile classrooms. I know I'm not running for school board, but
Right.
I'm going to be up front and tell you I think our kids deserve brick and mortar, and I think we need to plan for the future, build for the future.
Well, you're right. You're not running for school board, but the Board of Commissioners does handle the finances and votes on the budgets for the Board of Education. So going to that question then, we've got teachers who are certainly every teacher out there is doing an amazing job when it comes to trying to handle online learning and home learning and everything that's been asked of them. What can the Board of Commissioners do to better support our school district to help these teachers out?
I think we need to work together. I think they need to put partisanship aside. I think Democrats, and as I said before, Democrats and Republicans, I didn't need to know what you were before I helped you. I think on our boards we need to share together. We need to get together with a common vision, help each other out. Our kids deserve that. Our citizens deserve that. And there again, I'm the type person, I believe in being proactive instead of reactive. When you get in reactive situations, then you have to do things that you normally wouldn't do. So as being proactive, I would fully support looking into the future for our schools, for our education. We have to invest in our kids because they are our future. And I've got 4 boys here. I want Lee County to be so great they want to raise their kids and my grandkids here.
You've already mentioned a few times reaching across and whether you're Democrat, Republican, it doesn't matter. If elected, I guess Republicans and Democrats at this point in our nation have never been more divided. How do you bring the two parties together more, specifically at the local level?
Well, and that's where we need to start, Billy. We need to start at the local level. I encourage people to find out who you're voting for during this local election. It is that important. Our minds have focused on Washington, and that's who we're going to vote for straight down a party because of Washington. Folks, we need to vote local. You need to find out who you're voting for. It's that Democrat, Republican, find out who they are. Look at their heart and find out who they are. Don't look at the D or the R, find out who that person is. Don't listen to what they say, even me. Ask people. Ask people who the people they are running and find out who they are. But working together as boards, we have to come to unity. I was on our church's pastors' councils one time, and our pastor said, we have to agree to disagree to agree. In other words, we're going to have our own ideas, but we finally need to come together for this county and for the people, and they deserve that.
All right. You mentioned you had 4 boys. There's a sports complex on the ballot, funding of a sports complex on the ballot in this election. I know that's up to the people, and the commissioners will act accordingly based on this vote. But where do you fall on this bond referendum for a new sports complex?
I wish we'd had this thing years ago, to be honest with you. I'm for it. One thing that people need to decide, I know I see signs all out there, no tax, no bonds, no hike. Folks, we can, with the businesses, we had 4 of the top 25 businesses come to Sanford and Lee County within the last year. $800 million over that are going on to our books here within the next couple years. We can pay for a sports complex with no tax hike. If we are frugal with our money and we allow Saga to come in, get us more businesses because other businesses are looking. So we're in a great situation. Lee County and Sanford is really fixing to jump up to the next notch. And I'm for the sports complex. Wish my boys could have came through it, but future people are wanting to come to areas that have things like this. And, we're wanting businesses. That's why people say they come from other counties to work in our businesses here, because we don't offer as much. If we can offer more things, folks will come to Lee County and stay to Lee County and spend money in Lee County.
Well, Mr. Lovick, I've been given the old 2-minute warning here, so it's been a pleasure meeting you officially and getting to know you as a challenger for this race. So for these last couple minutes, I know you introduced yourself, but is there anything else about what you're running for, anything else about you and why people should vote for you that you would like to tell people at this time?
I will do what's right, folks. It doesn't matter if it's Democrat, Republican. If it's right for this county, that's the right thing to do. So many times we have come to these cross lines in our road on Democrats and Republicans, and if you cross that line, I'm not voting for it. It doesn't matter if it's a Democrat, Republican idea. I'm going to vote for the right thing for this county, and I think that's what all candidates, in fairness, should do. They should step up and work for the people of this county, and I've told you before, I'll name you 2 promises. 1, you won't see me just at election time. I will work my butt off for this county. 2, I will do my very best. Can I get you lower taxes or anything else? No. I will pray about every decision. Sometimes will I miss it? Sure I will. But there again, I will be big enough to step up and say I missed it. But I will do the best for you folks out there in Lee County. You have my promise on that.
Well said. Thank you very much, Mr. Mark Lovick. I'd like to join Sandhills Broadcasting and the rant in thanking Mark Lovick for his time today. We're going to take another short 2-minute break, and when we return, we'll talk with the 3rd Democratic Commissioner candidate, Cameron Sharp. So stay with us. Thank you so much, Mr. Lovick, and
good luck. For your time.
Good luck in November.
Appreciate y'all having us.
Yes, sir. We'll be right back right after these messages.